now Burger King has agreed to pay their tomato pickers closer to a minimum wage. Insurrection does work. In other words, insurrection of the wallet in this case. United Students Against Sweatshops has even gotten people like University of Oregon and Duke University to quit making their rah, 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 go football team, go basketball team swag in overseas sweatshops and get them made where the people get treated okay in the factories. Safeway and Vons, at least in California, publicly announced they won't carry any more milk with bovine growth hormone in it. No more second graders developing breasts and no more sinus infections for me, hopefully. And they said it was in response to consumer pressure, and I don't recall a single public campaign against this targeting Safeway, but somehow it happened anyway. And even in Florida, they've banned touchscreen voting machines. As the panel on ES&S points out, that alone does not solve the problem, but it does mean that even if the corporate media won't cover vote fraud and the Barack star won't say one thing about it, well, somebody did and it worked. You know, don't let the farty old left or the right ever convince you that, you know, the war about from the bottom against the top and most of us against a few billionaires and all, it's all about the battle of the proletariat against the big bad fascist pigs. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to have meetings, God damn it. No! I mean, it isn't all fun and games, but resistance should at least have some joy in it, right? Even if it's as little as me emceeing this big-ass anti-war protest concert in Washington, D.C. in 2005, and that was an interesting time there in the dressing room tent. Oh my God, there's Al Sharpton, there's Ian MacKaye, there's Brother Wayne Kramer, there's Maxine Waters, there's Jesse Jackson, there's Le Tigre, there's, Joan Baez. Wow, 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 wow. But I went on stage to introduce one of them, and there was a kid who could have been more than 13 holding up a sign with a big grin on their face, Dick Cheney kills kittens. There are some other great ones there people having fun with. Will someone give the president a blowjob so he can be impeached? Or, after what had happened a few days before, no Iraqi ever left me on a roof to die. That one was pretty good, too. I mean, doing something is better than doing nothing. Every time. I mean, don't let the more radical than thou ever convince you that just because you're not doing as much as they're doing or the same thing they're doing that you might as well not do anything at all. Wrong. Doing something's better than doing nothing. It can be as simple as just making a little vow to yourself, if you so desire, I'm not cooperating with corporations or their agenda anymore. They can't have me. And that means don't give them your money anymore. No more money to chain stores. No more money to chain restaurants. Put the money in the local businesses that keep the money and the jobs in the community instead. And even at the independent stores, start kind of keeping track of how many products you buy that are made by global corporate predators that you can do without. I mean, does Coca-Cola taste as good as it did when you were a kid? And how much does Budweiser or Coors have in common with decent beer? Or another easy one, who's done some of the worst damage to our society as well by funding all these hate groups and shit, as well as creating Jesse Helms out of thin air and ripping apart third world economies? Tobacco companies. Boycott cigarettes, and your breath may even smell good during sex. You never know. There are benefits. I mean, this could be like drugs or tattoos. The more you do it, the more you want to go further. I haven't eaten at McDonald's in about 30 years. Yeah. Why is that even worth applauding? How hard is it to not eat at McDonald's when they suck so bad? I thought, okay, If I don't want to eat at McDonald's, then why should I eat at Burger King? Why should I eat at Wendy's? I've never eaten at Wendy's in my life. I'll piss in their pots. I won't buy their food. My palate deserves better. You know, some of this is, you aren't suffering at all. It's just, the more you think about it, the more you can do this stuff, and at least nobody can be as pure as the driven snow and unplug completely unless you want to wind up as insane as the Unabomber or something. But anyway, and as hard as it is to find meaningful work that'll actually pay the bills in this day and age, you don't wind up my age still living in a rat hole with roommates you can't stand, try not to work for them. Don't give them your time, your energy, your intelligence. But if you must work for a global corporate predator, especially people here should remember how the digital age has ushered in such a whole wide new frontier of sabotage on the job. What is the last unspoiled art form left on Earth? No, not sex. Good guess, though. Crime! You don't get scholarships to go to crime school at the Fashion Institute or anything. You don't have this whole Canaan coming down of important criminals to do academic studies of. It's still wide open. And I've always had a soft spot in my heart for creative crime. What can I say? And I think a lot of you know that there's been some very interesting hacker attacks on Scientology lately, after they forced something off of YouTube because they didn't like how it portrayed their beloved Tom Cruise. And even what was called Google bombing, where if you look up dangerous cult on Google, Scientology pops up. And of course, that great YouTube ad is Hillary Clinton as Big Brother. That was very influential in sabotaging the agenda of somebody who was basically a female Richard Nixon for all practical purposes. So I'm thinking, if anybody can access, or better yet, hackcess all the records of the Bush administration and their emails that they claim they can't find before they destroy and delete everything the way Bush's father did with 2 months straight of paper shredding before Bill Clinton came in, get it, store it, save it, so we know what the hell happened later on. There's been some great anti-war pranks. I got to recall you from the Gulf War, too. One of them was some people put up a flyer around Dallas and Fort Worth, Texas. It was saying that, well, to protest the war, such and such a time, in the civic square of Fort Worth, we will kill our pets. And so then, hundreds of people show up at the appointed time. All the news trucks are there, waiting. And 2 teenagers come in incognito, watching all these suckers, waiting, costing their companies valuable company time by leaving work for the afternoon, all showing up, waiting for somebody to kill their pets. And it never happened. In the first few days of the Gulf War, flyers went up on the streets of downtown San Francisco during the mass protests where the proletariat people tried to claim they were in charge, and everybody just stormed past them and turned it into an all-night Mardi Gras several nights in a row. People who shall not be named put up flyers calling for a general strike. Which, you know, general strikes are cool. I mean, I'm not often nostalgic for the old days, but we need to bring back general strikes. They had one in Vancouver in, I think, the early 90s. It is possible. But anyway, flyers, general strike on such and such a day, endorsed by Jerry Garcia, Bill Graham, venerable local news columnist Herb Caen, star quarterback Joe Montana. What this meant was corporate McNews began tracking down people like Joe Montana and asked him, hey, what are you doing calling for a general strike? Then it gets on the 6 o'clock news. Joe Montana denied today he was in any way responsible for this flyer seen in downtown San Francisco, and then the general strike gets advertised on television. And I repeat my request from the last time. If you're as concerned about vote fraud as I am, and I never thought in this day and age, in this country, we'd have to be fighting for our right to vote. But we are. And so one of the best ways, I think, to expose digital vote fraud and shut that racket down once and for all, if they can hack those machines, so can we. And imagine the reptilian punditoids on TV McNews after, kind of going into conniptions and spaz attacks like Dan Rather did when he had to announce Jesse Ventura won in Minnesota. I don't believe this story, but it does appear the professional wrestler is blah, blah, blah. Anyway, well, we don't understand it. We don't understand it, Barbie doll. Yes, Ken doll. We don't understand it. The 12th state in a row has elected Homer Simpson governor. That'll bring down vote fraud once and for all. Because also what we're up against when building media literacy and better bullshit detectors is just convincing people life doesn't have to be this way. We don't have to be so stupid. We don't have to be so obedient. There was a big report a while back on the Pew Foundation, did a study of Americans' current attitudes toward religions and its place in politics and society. And one statistic popped out on that one. 78% of the 3,000 plus people they studied said that they had absolute standards of right and wrong. But only 5% said their absolute standards of morality and right and wrong were based on scientific information. 5%. What do the rest of them do? Here we go, putting down so-called primitive tribes for relying on witch doctors instead of big drug companies, when then we turn on the TV and we believe Dr. Phil, who isn't even a real MD, he's a witch doctor. He plays a doctor on TV. I mean, we have to illuminate what's possible. Spreading good ideas, pushing for good ideas is what puts them on the track to slowly but surely becoming reality. Don't let the issues be limited to, what sort of swift boat stuff gets thrown at McCain or Obama and suddenly that's the only thing that's important. Oh, the flag lapel is much more important than people's homes being foreclosed on and things like that. No, turn it around. I mean, if we want something else, we can eventually get there if we keep hammering, and especially if Obama gets in, blowtorch up the ass the whole time those people are in power. Blowtorch up their ass. Don't ever let them get comfortable. Remind them that national security really means that everybody has a home. National security means everybody can drink the water without having to buy it in a bottle from Coke or Pepsi. National security means not getting your hand cut off at work and having your job outsourced to India and you have to train the person replacing you. National security means that we don't live in fear of being taken out to one of Dick Cheney's torture chambers somewhere. And now, according to the British Guardian, they're torturing people on ships in the Indian Ocean. 200 people on over a dozen ships are there now. We don't have to fear that. National security means a woman decides what to do with her own body. National security means the Federal Communications Commission is less concerned about Howard Stern or Janet Jackson's titty as a weapon of mass destruction and more concerned with people like Fox News and the wannabe Fox Newses lying like fuck on TV every single night without anybody being allowed to reply. The whole reason that corporate McNews has been so dumbed down and so skewed to the extreme right, or if they have a discussion, it's right-wing versus ultra-right-wing, is because a law was allowed to expire in the late 1980s that was called the Fairness Doctrine, that said if one political point of view gets on the air, you have to let somebody have the same amount of time to reply without some clown like Bill O'Reilly telling them to shut up every 15 seconds. We need to bring the Fairness Doctrine back. Media reform. National security means everybody has enough to eat. National security means everybody has enough money for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and everybody, even if they ain't got no money, has the right to see a doctor when they're sick or if they're hurting. I mean, that and raising the wages up from the bottom is going to stimulate the economy a lot more than $300 checks that just get spent on credit card bills or porn or gasoline. It wasn't just Martin Luther King who called for people to have a guaranteed annual income right before they killed him. Milton Friedman, the conservative economist, has called for it. Even Richard Nixon called for it. This is the reason I like third parties so much and remain a registered Green. You know, if people aren't talking about the issues that matter, you make it one. Dennis Kucinich, the one decent Democrat running for president this time, not his platform, plagiarized from the Green Party, but hey, that's what the platform's for. So he proposed, since we have a cabinet position, a Department of War, which we renamed the Department of Defense after World War II. We got a War Department. How about a Department of Peace as a cabinet position? And the Bush Supreme Court probably will outlaw abortions fairly soon. So you take a page, again, from the religious rights playbook. They were pushing for a constitutional amendment banning a woman's choice on what to do with her own body. How about a constitutional amendment, since most of America supports choice, a constitutional amendment guaranteeing choice, no matter what the Bush Supreme Court has to say about it? Here's one from my mayor campaign. It just popped into my head. Cops should be elected, voted on by the districts they patrol. Humane drug laws. Easy way to get that started is the governor or the president, depending on if it's a state or federal prison system, can just commute all small-time drug offenders' sentences to time served and let them out of jail, close the extra prisons, and spend the money back in the education system where it belongs. Even the really nasty drugs that have killed some of my friends, like heroin and crack and the rest, should be decriminalized. Like they have in Holland or something, where people, if you're really that fucked up, you can go to a government health center and get your heroin on prescription for free, shoot up in peace, and what does that do? But it takes the drug trade away from the mob, away from the gangs, and then they don't have to spend all their time robbing and killing people to get money to pay the mob's high drug prices. Crime goes down. We have a minimum wage. How about a maximum wage? I'm probably the only person who was ever introduced by Bill Maher on Politically Incorrect as crazy when I got the producer to put a debate on maximum wage onto the program. But I believe that. I mean, six figures in its payback time. What causes more trouble in the world, drug addiction or wealth addiction? And I'll bet you if wealth addicts were put in rehab long enough to cure them of their problems, even Bill Gates or Dick Cheney could do good. You know, sure, Gates spends a few $1 million of his gazillion billion-dollar fortune on charity, but why not take the whole thing and start a new car company that builds electric cars? If you see a documentary called Who Killed the Electric Car, you will know that the technology for workable electric cars and pickup trucks exists right now. GM tried them out, Chrysler and the others. They worked so well that they recalled them from the people they leased them to and destroyed them. Bring that back. Let Bill put General Motors out of business if he's willing to do it. And what do you get in exchange for maximum wage? All of a sudden, all education is free, no more student loans over everybody's heads, free health care for everybody, free transportation for everybody, including air travel. And to make taxes a little more bearable, obviously tax the rich more than the poor, unlike what is done now, and let people have about 12, 15 boxes on their tax forms to rank what percentage of their tax money they want spent where. I'll bet education and the environment will go straight up and the arms race will go straight down. Foreclosures on homes, there's a simple solution for that: squatting. Howard Zinn, the historian, points out that in the Great Depression in the 1930s, when people began losing their homes, they refused to leave. By the thousands, by the tens of thousands. A lot of people got them back after that. Legalize squatting, especially in buildings left empty for tax write-off purposes. Campaign finance reform the easy way, so they don't have to be covering themselves with brown lipstick just to get elected, even to a smaller office. No. 2 ways to do this. Number 1, limit campaign time in the election cycle, like they do in Canada or in European parliamentary democracies, to 30 days or maybe 60 days, but no more. And anybody who jumps the gun in electioneers or campaigns or asks fat cats for money ahead of the first day is automatically disqualified. That way you don't have to get sick of all these people for a year or more in this pseudo-American Idol thing going on with the primary circuses now and all. And another way you can do it, and they've already put this on the ballot by public referendum, it's already law in Nevada. If you don't like any of the candidates for a certain office, you do have the option of voting none of the above. And if none of the above wins, they have to rerun the election with all new candidates. Local example, in San Francisco, they're going to dig up all the streets in the next 5 years to replace old sewer lines. Supervisor Tom Amiano has proposed, since we've already got the trenches, lay fiber optic cable and then give everybody broadband for free. Of course, Mayor Gavin Newsom won't hear of the idea, but it's still a great idea you might be able to make happen in your community. And we have no hope, zero, of competing in the global economy today unless we reroute a large chunk of our so-called national security budget to education, to health care, so people can show up work healthy, go to school healthy. And the American Society of Civil Engineers has reported that our infrastructures, like that bridge that collapsed in Minnesota, are in so much disrepair that it'll cost $1.5 trillion just to get it all fixed. Maybe we should start now. And it would only cost $100 billion, which we blow in 6 months on Iraq, to weather strip all kinds of low-income low-income homes and save, well, that's where the $100 billion came from, save $100 billion in wasted energy costs and burning up fossil fuel if we just fix the stuff instead of waiting for private enterprise in the market like Herbert Hoover, George Bush, and the libertarians believe should be done. Fix it now. Bring the internet and phone service up to the superior standards of Europe and Japan. I mean, we can't keep giving up and settling for so little. We must not settle for being Bill Clinton again. The eagle cannot fly on 2 right wings forever. And we are tired of being freedom fried. And if we don't put our individual and collective blowtorch up the ass of our corporate appointed puppet leaders and keep it there, well, maybe one of those lovely Bush quotes, he may actually be right for once. I'll be long gone before some smart person ever figures out what happened in this Oval Office. We can do better. Let's do it. Start some fires. Thanks a lot.